Hi everyone, I'm GREYMOND. I'm an OCD recovery coach with more than 10 years of experience helping people recover from OCD. Prior to that, I had severe OCD myself that I fully recovered from, and as do my clients. So if you wonder, can you fully recover from OCD? Absolutely, yes, you can.
Today, I wanted to talk to you about extreme exposures. In my view, they're not necessary and they can actually be harmful. And in this video, I will explain why. A lot of the times when clients come to me from past failed attempts with doctors, therapists, whatever, they say that the person made them do an extreme exposure, and it can get to the point where that extreme exposure can cause PTSD. Because what the doctors and therapists are not addressing is how the person is going to be after that exposure. So, say a person has contamination OCD, they were afraid to, I don't know, eat the food off the plate, and the therapist says, well, why don't you eat the food off the floor? First of all, that's not normal behavior. And the whole point of doing recovery work is to go back to normalcy rather to push ourselves into another extreme. But let's just put that aside and let's say person did the session, they did the exposure, and now they're falling apart because they've just eaten the food off the floor. At this point, the therapist says, well, the session is over, goodbye, see you next week or whatever. And then how is that person going to be reacting the rest of the day? They're going to be ruminating, they're going to be powering this idea up. So that exposure, even though they push through in that moment, overall is not making things better. And I've seen clients in the past go to the point of developing PTSD from some of these exposures. So the way I look at it is if we're trying to create normalcy, if we're trying to recover, let's do things as people who don't have OCD do, rather than push ourselves in another extreme and do exposures that you can mentally handle. I'm not saying you shouldn't do exposures. Exposures is the gold standard of OCD recovery, but there needs to be a limit on how extreme do you go with these exposures, and is this something necessary? For example, a good exposure, let's say if a person is avoiding watching TV, a good exposure would be to watch TV. This would be a non-purpose planned exposure. Why? Because that's normal behavior that this person would do had they not had OCD. And again, comparing to eating food off the floor, that is not normal behavior that they would not do, that they would do if they didn't have OCD. They wouldn't do that. And again, when you hear these things online, when people say, I can't recover, I'm not doing well, OCD is chronic, they're not tracking. I can guarantee you that because they can't legally use my method. Their therapist or whatever practitioner can't. So they're doing, these kinds of exposures, or they're doing talk therapy, or they're doing scripting, which I addressed scripting in the previous video, which is also not really effective. So of course they're not going to recover, but it says nothing about your recovery. Track, do recovery work. You can do this. If you would like to do one-on-one recovery program with me, all the information is on youhaveocd.com.